This 535i E60 project is almost complete. I've already done quite a few repairs on it, including replacing the valve cover, repairing the headlights, some paint and body work, and repairing the subframe. In today's video, we'll finish this project up with this little list right here. So let's get into it on Rebuild or Revival. So here are all the parts right here that we're going to be using today. Here are our motor mounts, trans mounts. We've got the trans pan right here, new gasket, our side marker lights right here, these little LED ones. This is the front window rubber. This is the rear window rubber. We've got the cowl cover right here with our new windshield wipers, and then this is the power steering stop leak that we're going to try. So let's start with the engine mounts. All right, so we're up under the car here. We're going to be lowering the subframe a little bit, so we're going to remove this reinforcement plate, unbolt the subframe from the car, support the engine, and then lower the subframe enough to get the motor mounts out. Before you lower the subframe, you need to support the engine somehow. I'm going to use one of these style jacks and just support it from underneath the oil pan. I've also got one of these jacks on the rear diff just to make sure the car doesn't start tilting that way. So I've loosened the subframe. I don't think I hit record, but there's just 6 bolts, a couple in the back, some in the center, and then a couple up here in the front. There's one of the holes right there you could see. So just 6 bolts. We've dropped that down a little bit. I've got another one of these jacks supporting the subframe. It'll just hang there, but I've got one under there just in case. So now we're gonna start to remove the motor mounts. One of them is right here. This is the bottom of the motor mount right there. I think you can get at the top bolt from above, but I'm gonna do it from down below. Not really supposed to do it this way, but I've already got all this set up. So I'm gonna use a ratchet, go in right through here, and hopefully get at that top bolt. All right, got it on this side. Okay, so here it is on the driver's side. I'll put an arrow in the video where the top of the motor mount is. There's tons of access on the driver's side. It's just the passenger side that's a little more difficult. Okay, so now we've got the motor mounts disconnected from the engine. You can see the bolt right there sticking off the top of the motor mount. That is disconnected. So now we need to remove the bolts that go down into the subframe. They're E10s. One of them is right there, you can see, and then the other one is around the front.
On the passenger side, you'll need to remove this heat shield to get the motor mount out.
All right, so here are the motor mounts. But this one, I think this is the driver, is really bad. This thing is toast. Look at that. So we've got the new ones here. So now we'll go ahead and go in with the new ones.
First, we'll go in with the driver's side.
All right, so we've got the driver motor mount in. You can see how the bolt sits, pretty much pointed straight up into the hole on the engine. So we've got that one in. Now we'll just bolt it in.
Now the passenger side.
All right, so now we've got the passenger and the driver is in up over there as well. So now we need to raise the subframe up and guide the top motor mount bolt into its hole. All right, now we're gonna go up with the subframe and engine and all. Now we're gonna do the transmission mounts, which are up under this bracket, but we need to at least drop this exhaust down some. I don't think I wanna take it all the way out because it's one piece from basically here all the way back. So I'm just gonna put some penetrating lubricant on these bolts. So we'll let that sit for a little bit. And then hopefully those will come loose. Okay, now we need to get this heat shield out. As you can see on this side, there's 3 bolts holding this cross member in, which is we need to remove. So I can't get to all the 3 bolts on the other side until we move this heat shield. So let's get this heat shield out. Okay, I think that's good enough. There we go. All right, so here are the trans mounts. These are the 2 bad ones or old ones. They're not really that bad, but if you look at like the space in between here and here, they're kind of smushed. And on this one, you can start to see a little bit of cracking. I just wanted to replace these while we did the motor mount, so I know they're all done and none of these are contributing to any vibration. So now let's go back in with these new ones. So first, I'm gonna put them into the cross member. You just slide them into this little notch and then spin them. So now let's get this heat shield put back up. All right, now let's get the exhaust put back on. We'll just lift it up and on. All right, so we've got the first one done, engine and trans mount. So now let's do the tranny service. All right, so the reason why we're doing the service on this tranny is because this transmission pan gasket is leaking. So we've got a pan that came with the gasket all together, so we'll be replacing the whole pan. So I've got my drain pan here set up, so now we're just gonna drain the tranny fluid.
The drain plug is stripped on this, so we'll just loosen the pan bolts.
Man, check out the color of this fluid. That is bad. This car only has 60,000 miles on it. Jeez. I'm gonna take this bracket off because it's in the way of a couple of bolts. All right, while I was in here, you know I gotta pull that magnet. Doesn't look too bad. Obviously it's gonna have some metallic material on it, but nothing crazy, so. Okay, now we're gonna clean the gasket mating surface up a little bit. I already started wiping this off. We're just gonna use some carb cleaner, spray it onto our rag, and then wipe the surface off. We've got our new transmission pan here. It's got an integrated filter and the gasket is already installed. I think you can replace just the gasket, but we're doing the whole thing. So we've got an O-ring on this tube. I'm just gonna put a little bit of the transmission fluid that we're using on that O-ring to help it slide into place. I'm just gonna be using this Valvoline full synthetic max life multi-vehicle. So I'm gonna put a little bit of this on this O-ring. All right, we'll just do one last quick little wipe in there. There it goes. Get to it. All right, just finished torquing the last bolt. These are torqued to 9 Newton meters, and I'll put a picture up of the torque sequence, 1, 2, star pattern all the way around. Now that we've got all the pan bolts torqued down, we're gonna start filling the transmission. We're just gonna be using one of these little Harbor Freight transfer pumps. I would like to get something nicer than this, but this is what we're working with now. Here is the fill plug on the side of the transmission. It's an 8mm. The drain plug is here. That's a 10mm. You want to make sure this is torqued down to 8 Newton meters before you start filling. And then this one I already loosened a little bit, so it'll come off easier. So we'll just pull this out and then start filling the transmission. So now we'll just start pumping the fluid in like this. Got my bottles here, got the pump there, and we'll just pump it in until it starts coming out. And then we'll move on to the next procedure. All right, now that the fluid has started to come out of the fill plug, we need to start the car to let it get up to operating temperature. So now we're gonna use our Altel to monitor the temperature. This is what it says here. Initial between 30 and 40. So now we're just gonna wait for the fluid temperature to be between 30 and 40. All right, we're almost there, 29 degrees Celsius. Let's see what it does when we go to 30. Let's go no. So now we're just gonna continue filling until it overflows one more time. Okay, now we'll continue. Yes, we're in park. Yes, now it does. Okay. So I'm gonna shift it through all of the gears really quick just to make sure fluid is throughout the whole transmission. Now we'll just pump a little more in just to make sure it's completely topped off. Now we can go ahead and put the fill plug back in. Okay, now I just need to put this clamp back on. There's this little piece that goes underneath here, hooks around the back side. All right, now we're done with the tranny service. Let's move on to the front and rear window rubber or seals. Okay, so now we're gonna replace this rubber seal here. We're just gonna pull it out completely, vacuum anything out, brush it up a little bit, clean it, wipe it down with some alcohol, and then we'll stick the new one on. So basically how this seal works is you're going to use this channel, stick it onto the windshield, and then pull off the strip that reveals the 3M stick underneath, and that's going to stick onto the roof. just gonna leave the tape on for a little bit while the glue sticks. All right, now we're gonna replace this rear seal. It's all deteriorated. So we have the whole thing to go across the top, the sides, and then I think we even do have the bottom. So let's get this one pulled out, clean the track, and then we'll put the new seal in. All right, check that out. Came out pretty good. So if you lift this trim piece up, you can get the seal underneath it, which looks pretty clean. And here's the front one with all the tape removed. Looks really good too. All right, let's cross this off the list and move on to the cowl cover and wipers. We just need to remove the windshield wiper arms first, and then we can remove the cowl cover.
Perfect.
All right, now we need to remove this little block that's on this wiper arm shaft here. And how you do that is with a puller. This isn't really the right size. It's an okay type puller. This is a little big for this job. They do make smaller ones that would fit better down there, but I have this, so I'm gonna try this one. It's just the 2-jaw puller. Got it. So I had to remove the hood struts so I can lift the hood up a little bit more to get clearance over there. This thing says 35 Newton meters right on it, so let's do that. Okay, there we go. All right, looks good. Got the new wipers on there as well. So cowl cover and wipers are done. Let's move on to the side markers. All right, these are pretty easy to take off. They just kind of slide forward or back, I forget which one, and then they just pop out. They are stuck with glue to the fender, so you just kind of have to pry them off a little bit and then they'll be able to slide back. And then they pop out. Here's the little spring, so you just got to push it back and then the front will pop out. All right, now we'll just clean it up with some alcohol because the new one does have some glue that needs to stick to the fender. And this one, I think you can run like a running light to it or something like that. We're not gonna do that. We'll just use it as a blinker. So just peel off this back plastic. There we go. Okay, side markers done. Now we need to tackle the quarter panel. Here's the quarter panel that we're going to be working on. This I already painted, but it does have some pretty bad orange peel going on. Here's the spot that I tried to blend the paintwork into the original paint. It did not go very well. This was my first time trying that, and I didn't do a very good job. So we're gonna wet sand and polish this and see if we can make that look any better. I'm not looking for perfection, but good enough. So let's start wet sanding. All right, well, wet sanding didn't really help this out much. I wasn't sure if it was going to. I was hoping, but it did not. So we're gonna have to redo the blend on this portion. So let's cover the rest of the car and we'll start prepping for paint. All right, so I've got the car all masked off and I've also scuffed up the area where I'm gonna be painting. Basically what I'll be doing is doing base coat in this section here where that line is, and then I'll start fading somewhere in this area, and then I'll do my last fade somewhere in that area. So basically spray and then fan out, spray and then fan out, and then I'll bring my clear coat all the way to somewhere in here where I'll have a soft edge for the clear coat, and then after that flashes off, I'll do my blending agent right in here. And then I'll bring my clear coat all the way down to this soft edge, remove that, and then use the blender right in that area. So let's go mix up some paint. So we've got our base here, BMW Titan Silver mixed, and our hardener here for that. And then here is our clear coat with our hardener for that. So we'll do 2-to-1 on each. And I'm not gonna do very much because I don't need very much. All right, so I've got this piece of cardboard here so I can test out my spray pattern and narrow the fan down just a little bit. We'll just use a little bit of acetone to do that. So let's get our spray pattern, wipe it down with wax and grease remover, tack cloth, and then we'll start spraying our base coat. Okay, I didn't record the second coat, but I did do 2 coats. This is what it looks like.
This is coat number 3.
Okay, I changed my mind. I'm gonna do the whole rail all the way up to the fender. I don't trust my blending skills. I think it's not gonna look good again. So I'm gonna do all the way up here. And plus I had the paint to do it, so we'll just start there and do 2 coats all the way up to here, and then we'll clear the whole thing.
I also ended up unmasking the whole quarter panel and prepping it for paint just to make sure there are no issues with having to blend any paint. Once the base coat flashes, I'll use a tack cloth before laying down the clear coat.
All right, so I just finished up 2 coats of clear. I'm not sure if I recorded either one of them, but they laid down pretty nice. I think there's gonna be a lot less orange peel this time. Of course, there's gonna be some. I'm not a pro, but now everything is all uniform. There's no blend. So the color is gonna look uniform throughout this whole rail, and hopefully it'll match up good with the roof and everything else. So let's wait for this to flash and then we'll pull the plastic off.
I'm definitely happy with how the paint turned out. The metallic is really even and the clear coat is really smooth.
So I'm gonna say we're done with the quarter panel for now. I can't detail it yet because I still need to wait for the paint to completely dry. So we're gonna move on to doing the power steering stop leak. All right, so where the leak is coming from on this car is the top of the steering box where this shaft goes in. To get this seal replaced, you have to remove this shaft here, and you can't because it hits the body of the car. So you either need to drop the subframe or pull the whole steering box out of the car. So we're gonna try this stop leak first. I wanna just clean all of this up. You can see here, this is all power steering fluid. The reinforcement plate is normally up over there, and you can see it actually has a lot of fluid on it as well. That's also walnut shells, but all of this is all from the power steering fluid. So I already sprayed everything down with brake clean. I sprayed it all up in here, all along the subframe. Now we're just gonna wipe it off. It was also leaking from this fitting. I think I accidentally wiped it off already. I kind of wanted to check to see how it was doing because I did tighten this fitting, wipe it off before, but I don't know if it's still leaking or not. But we're definitely going to clean up in this area too because I want to see if there's any leaks coming out of any of these vents or these lines or anything up here.
The active sway bar gets its fluid from the power steering system.
All right, we're gonna clean this reinforcement plate up as well because it's very dirty. So it seems like this thing is a little bit bent. It's kind of bent in here. Okay, this thing's ready to go back in. The power steering stop leak that we're going to use is this Blue Devil stuff. I've heard some pretty good things about it. A lot of people are saying that it has worked as a permanent fix. So basically what they want you to do is pour 1/3 of the bottle into the power steering reservoir. You don't want to overfill it though, so if your power steering fluid is really full, you might want to take a little bit of that out. I'm going to because I just topped this off recently. So I'm gonna pull a little bit of fluid out and then I'll put 1/3 of this bottle in. All right, so first we're just gonna wipe the top of this bottle off because there's a bunch of junk around it. We're just above the max line. So we're gonna pull some of this out. That's probably good. Nice and dirty. Barely on the dipstick. That's good. We were right about there. So they say to use 1/3 of the bottle. I'm gonna use about half because I feel like my leak is a little bit worse than the average leak. So we're gonna go in with 1/2 a bottle. This thing is really full when you first get it, so be careful when you open it. I spilt it everywhere. So now it says to drive the car for about 2 hours for normal leaks, up to 2 days for more major leaks. We're going to just start the car and turn the wheel back and forth here in the shop for now until that paint dries and we can actually go outside and drive it. So let's start it up and move the steering wheel back and forth. Okay, so I had the wheels off the ground for a little bit just to get a lot of fluid going. So now I set it back onto the ground. We're on the ground now, and I want to turn the steering wheel now because it's going to put a lot more pressure through the system. Okay, so we were running it for maybe about 30 minutes, steering it back and forth for probably 10 of that, and I don't see any fluid. That's a pretty good sign. We will drive it and check back later, but I'm pretty hopeful that this is gonna work. Okay, so this actually seems to be leaking a little bit now. In between the fitting and this yellow hose, there's a little bit of fluid, but we'll see over time if this continues to leak or not. This one was just barely seeping, wasn't a big deal. I doubt you would hardly ever even see any drips from this one. The leak from the steering box was a lot worse. All right, so we're gonna call this kind of done. We'll put one slash through it. I wanna drive and then come back, but I can't drive yet until the paint is dry. So we're gonna call that possibly done. Now we're gonna detail the car. We need to do the exterior, interior, engine bay, everything, wheels. So I wanna try something that I got recently. It's this containment. It's made by WELKIN, and it's basically just a tarp that goes underneath the car with a ledge or a curb all the way around to contain all the water. My shop doesn't really slope out, and plus I have this rail that goes through the center, so it kind of keeps the water everywhere else but going out of the shop. So let's get the car up in the air and get this thing set up underneath it. Okay, so here's the mat. I was expecting this edge to be a little bit taller. It's only, I don't know, maybe an inch tall. And this one is only 8 feet wide, so it only sticks out about a foot on either side of the car, which is kind of what I needed to fit in between my lift. So that's what we're working with. This one is 8 by 20 or maybe 8.5 by 20 feet. It also comes with a couple of patches and this squeegee to get the water off of the mat. So basically what we're gonna try and do is wash the car, and then we'll lift it up and then pull the mat out and then just squeegee all the water off. We'll see how that works. We're gonna start with the interior, so I'll just show you kind of how it looks now. check this out. This is how much water came out of that car. Full bottles of water. Gallons. This is making me laugh. What do I do with all this water? And we have about maybe 75 cents and change, and all of this stuff. Check out all of this stuff. Hey, I wonder if that's still good. If I get 100 likes on this video, I'll eat this thing. All right, moving on. We need to put all of these cowling parts back in the car, but before I do that, I want to clean them off. So we're going to clean these up real quick and then get them back in the car. All right, that's gonna do it for today's video and this 535i E60 build series. When I bought this car, it was not running and it had quite a few mechanical and cosmetic issues that we were able to take care of over this series. Now the car is looking and driving perfectly, ready for its new owner. So we'll be moving on to the next project, so stay tuned for that coming up on the channel soon. So thank you all for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all in the next video.